Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Bruce and welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well. It's been a really long time since I posted anything and I would like to apologize for that. I will talk about what's been happening to me at the end of the video, but for now, let's take a look at the new pack, shall we? This time we got a rather simple gimmick to understand called Nightfall, and I would love it if future gimmicks were treated like Nightfall instead of transformation. So to explain Nightfall in a simple way is that you can think of it like a permanent rally buff that only takes effect when you gain a certain amount of Nightfall counter. For example, we're going to take a look at Russet Sparrow. His basic ability says that at the start of your turn, he will gain 3 shield if you have 3 Nightfall. This effect will not trigger unless you have 3 Nightfall counter. You can gain 1 Nightfall counter every time you resolve an effect that needs Nightfall. If you activate a card that says it needs 3 Nightfall, that extra effect will not activate and will just increase your Nightfall counter. But on the other side, if you have enough Nightfall counter, it will not increase the counter and will resolve the effect like normal. Basically, you can only increase your Nightfall counter if you activate an effect that requires higher counter than what you have now. I honestly like this gimmick. It's very easy to understand and less RNG compared to cooking and transformation. Now that I've explained the new gimmick, let's take a look at the new Shikigami and what they bring to spice up the game. So first up we have Kinnara. She's the poster girl for this pack, and I think a lot of people have been waiting. I already got my wish when Senhime got released, so I don't particularly care about her. And she immediately got an alternative art, which is impressive, but I like the default look better, to be honest. Her basic ability is that when she rolls a dice, deal 1 random damage to opponent unit, and then Nightfall 10, she gains 1 orb. Man, it's been more than a year and Net is still can't hire someone to proofread their cards. This effect is pretty weak since you have to bring other Nightfall Shikigami just to trigger her basic ability. And if you're thinking to bring other Lux Shikigami to trigger the one projectile, I'm sorry to tell you but that will not work since her basic ability only works if she's the one that rolls the dice with her cards. Well then, let's take a look at her cards and see if we can change our opinion on her. Her first card is Prologue, Moonless Night. It has fast, Nightfall 1, Divination 1, draw 1 card. Enhance, repeat once more if you have 0 Nightfall. Jeez, that's a lot of keywords in one card. This is effectively a draw 2 card if you have this in your starting hand. And it even has fast so you can focus your setup on your other Shikigami. I think this is a good card as a one-off because after you gain Nightfall, this card isn't really that good. Then we have a form card with 3/5 stats, Palace, Silence Hall. When the opponent's Shikigami attacks, luck check 6, reduce 1 attack until the end of the turn. For every 2 Nightfall counter, you have -1 point for the luck check. This means if you have 10 Nightfall, you can trigger this effect even if you landed a 1 on the luck check. You're mainly going to use this card to build up your Nightfall counter because there's no way your opponent going to let you live long enough to gather your full Nightfall. The next card is Show Shade. Deal 4 damage to the opponent's Shikigami in the combat zone and the opponent player. Luck check 6, deal another 4 damage to random Shikigami, and the luck check reduce effect will apply to the rest of the cards, so I will stop mentioning it for now. This is a definite 2-off because dealing 4 damage to the combat zone and straight to the player is really powerful, and if you land the luck check, you also get to deal another 4 damage. I don't think I need to explain how good this card is, so we move on to the next card is Horde Voice. Deal 5 damage to opponent's Shikigami. Luck check 6, deal 1 damage to all opponent unit, and the luck check reduce effect. It's basically a targeting 5 damage projectile with 1 damage AoE. A targeting 5 damage is nice, but we already have Hoga and Kanko that did it better. Next we have another form card with 4/5 stats, Portent Conflict. On activation and at the start of your turn, luck check 6, summon a Conflict Doll, and the luck check reduced effect. Conflict Doll is weird because it has 2 versions, the 2/4 stats with lifesteal or the 4/2 stats with haste. I mean, if you really need a blocker in your luck check team, I would suggest bringing Komatsumaru instead, because Komatsumaru has higher health and doesn't rely on RNG for her stats. And then we have her last form card with 4/5 stats, Feather Serene Place. On activation and at the start of your turn, luck check 6, draw a card, and the luck check reduce effect. This is basically a slightly better version of Zashiki's card, but I would not bring this unless you're that desperate for Nightfall points or draw. Next is her SSR Evolve Kinnara. On activation, luck check 6 to get 2 Kinnara cards from outside the deck. And now Kinnara deals 3 projectile instead of 1, and she keeps the gain 1 orb effect when you have 10 Nightfall. I think this card is very underwhelming for an SSR. This only gives you an extra 2 damage compared to the basic ability, and if you want to get that extra card, you need to land the luck check. And the last card is End No Return. Defeat a unit that has less attack or health than your Nightfall counter. If you target a Shikigami, Nightfall 10, defeat countdown +2. I think this card is much more powerful than her SSR, because if you have 10 Nightfall counter and your opponent has 10 or less life, you can kill them instantly with this card. I think overall Kinnara is pretty meh despite being the pack poster girl. Her most powerful card relies on how well you can stack Nightfall, and her RNG is very RNG reliant. The next Shigami is Russet Sparrow or Nyunai Suzume. I think that's what they called him in the JP version. I think the Shigami in this pack has absolutely stunning designs, but I think Suzume has the better arts out of them all. And he's voiced by Eguchi Takuya, which also voiced Lloyd Forger in the recent Spy Family anime. His basic ability is that at the start of your turn, Nightfall 3 gain 3 shield. I would say if you want to build up your Nightfall really fast, I would suggest bringing him, because his passive will easily carry you to Nightfall 3, and the rest of his cards will carry you to Nightfall 7 with relative ease. Well then, let's take a look at his card. His first card is Pecking Birds. Deal 3 damage to an opponent's Shigami, then recover health to what's left on that Shigami health. Nightfall 3, then randomly deal another 3 damage to another Shigami, and Russet Sparrow gains equal amount of shield. I think this is worth bringing just for that health recovery, and this is a really powerful card for 11-1. Next card is his first form card with 3/6 stats, Muted Birds. When Russet Sparrow is defeated, projectile equal to your Nightfall counter. This is a funny card. Sparrow will give one last fuck you to the opponent when they kill them. I really wish this card has a piercing keyword just to make that projectile even hurt. I guess that would be too powerful for a level 1 card. The next card is Morning Bird. Can be played even when defeated. Revive Sparrow and give it 1 shield for every 2 Nightfall counter and recover 1 health for you. It's very rare for a purple Shigami to have combat card, and this is actually really freaking good because you can use it even when Sparrow is defeated, and because it's a combat card, you automatically get a blocker because he will stay in the combat zone unless he's defeated again. Next, we have another form card with 4/7 stats, Courtyard Silent. When the opponent's Shigami attacks Sparrow, Nightfall 5, reduce 2 attack of that Shigami until the end of the turn. The attack reduction is decent, but unless you have Nightfall 5, this card is basically a vanilla that does nothing. I don't mind if they reduce the attack but increase the health instead of having a high attack and mediocre health. Then we have another combat. Man, Sparrow gets all the goods. It has +2 attack and +1 shield. Nightfall 5 deal 1 AoE damage. But sadly the effect is meh. I mean, if we compare it to his previous combat card, this is pretty underwhelming, but good enough for a purple Shigami. The next card is his Evolve. On activation, Nightfall 5, move Sparrow to the combat zone. Nightfall 7 permanently gains 1/1. I think this card is great because this is like Odokuro's SSR but cheaper and without the random revive. And this having Nightfall 7 is great for your other Nightfall Shigami because you can easily ramp to 7 counter without wasting any card. Then we have his last form cards with 0/0 stat, Rotten Feather. It has Substitute and Enhance. Gain stats equal to your Nightfall point, and the highest this card can go is 10 stats. But most of the time you would get like 5 to 7, and the Substitute is nice but he has other better cards. And lastly, we have Nightbird's Rest. On activation and at the start of your turn, randomly revive one of your Shigami, then Nightfall 10, defeat a random opponent's Shigami. And at the end of the turn, if you don't have this card on the field, and you have 10 Nightfall counters, play this card automatically from your hand or deck. Now, this is a great SSR. Not only you get a free revive every turn, you also get a free kill at the start of your turn. If it's get destroyed and you still have one more copy, it will automatically activate and you'll be able to snowball your opponent with your Shikigami. The next Shikigami is Ushi no Toki. I've seen people says that she looks like a zombified Hatsune Miku, and I can't exactly deny it since she has those iconic green twin tails. Anyway, out of all the Shigami in this pack, I think I like her the best since her card is literally made to annoy your opponent. And because she is voiced by none other by Kiwa Saito, who also voiced Tamamo no Mae from Fate Extra. Her basic ability is when Ushi no Toki summons, enter the field, Nightfall 3, that summon, gain 3 attack. This ability is very similar to Nekomata's ability, but slightly better because you don't have to keep a card in your hand to trigger its effect. I think it's a pretty balanced effect since her summon don't have fusion or stack ability. Her first card is Straining Waraningyo. Select opponent Shigami and summon a Straining Waraningyo. All of her cards that summons a Waraningyo will have the same text, so I will not mention them and just explain what each Waraningyo does. When Straining Waraningyo takes damage, stun that selected Shigami. When Cursed Waraningyo takes damage, randomly discard a card that belongs to that Shigami. And when the Substitution Waraningyo takes damage, inflict equal amount to that Shigami. I think you know which one I like. Hand destruction is very rare in this game, so of course I love Cursed Waraningyo. The only other Shigami that does this hand destruction is MOBA with her form cards. And I think Ushinotoki summons are better than Nekomata because the effects are really powerful, especially the stun and hand destruction. The next card is Curse Python. It has fast and rebound. Deal 3 damage to a summon, Nightfall 3, draw a card. This is a solid draw card, especially for purple Shigami that has almost no draw cards. But I think I would only bring this as a one-off because you need to hit a summon to activate it and it already has rebound, so I don't think you need that much unless the rank meta shifts to a summon spam meta. Then we have her first form card with 3-4 stats, Doll Maker. At the end of your turn, your summon gain 2 health, Nightfall 5, gain 1 attack. This is a great card to quickly build up your Nightfall, while also making your summons more tanky. The attack boost is negligible, you just want to build up the health. Then we have another form card with 4-5 stats, Doll Master. At the start of your turn, Nightfall 7, randomly summon a Waraningyo, then target a random opponent Shigami. When her summon enters the field, deal 3 damage to it. This is her best card because every turn she will summon a Waraningyo and deal damage to it, triggering the effects immediately. But Nightfall 7 is kind of high, so that's why you want to bring at least one Doll Maker to speed up the process. The next card is Cursed Fire. Deal 3 damage to your combat zone and all opponent Shigami. This card is not that bad. You can treat it like Otengu's level 3 spell. You want to use it when you can kill at least 2 or 3 Shigami. And lastly, we have her SSR, Evolve, Ushi no Toki. Select opponent Shigami and randomly summon a Waraningyo that you have summoned. Her basic ability changed to now her summon will gain attack equal to your Nightfall counter, and at Nightfall 10, it will add randomly another target when you summon a Waraningyo. The attack boost is nice and all, but this is just a win more SSR. You don't necessarily need it, but it's a fun card to have. The next Shigami is Momiji, and look at this. Those are very nice, but still not as nice as Suzuhiko-zen. Anyway, her basic ability is that when you gain Nightfall counter, projectile 1. I think this ability is okay, not as good as Hoga because you can't exactly spam Nightfall. Her first card is Maple Amulet. Deal 3 damage and attach Maple Teru Bozu to a Shigami. Maple Teru Bozu is her invocation, and at the end of that Shigami's turn, remove the invocation and deal 2 damage. And when you have 10 Nightfall points, deal an extra 2 damage all other opponent units. That Nightfall 10 is really powerful. You can treat this invocation as a more powerful, vengeful Foxmar. Then we have Cursed Explosion. Deal damage equal to your Nightfall counter to a Shigami. This card is meh, since the most you can deal with this card is realistically 3 to 5 damage in early to mid game. Then we have her first form looking very elegant with 2-6 stats and Hunt. When Momiji deals attack damage to a Shigami, attach a Maple Teru Bozu to it. While attaching the invocation is great and all, but risking Momiji dying is not good. The art is absolutely gorgeous. Next, we have another form card with 3-6 stats, Dance with Gentleness. When entering the battlefield, projectile 3 damage, and for every 5 Nightfall counter, her non-attack damage +1. The +1 and the potential +2 is good and all, but this form is basically a vanilla after you activate it since it doesn't do anything by itself. Then we have Scattered Maple. It has fast. Remove the Maple Territory Bozu from the opponent's Shigemi, then deal 2 damage to all opponent units and draw a card. This card is fantastic. Not only you get to deal 2 damage AoE, you also get a draw without using your orbs. Next card is her SSR. It's a form card with 4/6 stats, Maple Death. On activation and at the start of your turn, attach a Maple Territory Bozu on a random Shigemi. And when that Shigemi is defeated, deal 2 damage to the opponent. God damn, net easy. This is worse than a typo. You just straight up didn't write the rest of the effect. Then we have Dance of the Death. Fast. Attach Maple Territory Bozu to all opponent's Shigemi. This combos really well with her SSR, but this being a level 3 card is a bit slow. And lastly, we have her Evolve. It has +1/+1 stats, and she now deals 3 projectile instead of 1. And at the end of your turn, Nightfall 10, projectile 10. But this effect only activates once. Sadly, that last effect only activates once, but I guess it's going to be very overpowered if you can activate it at the end of your turn every turn. But I guess this is an okay upgrade to her basic ability. I'm not sure if you want to bring this, maybe as a one-off? And okay, we're halfway through the Shigemi, so if you want to grab a drink or go to the toilet, now's the time. Continuing our journey, the next Shigemi is Kubi Nashi. His basic ability is that when he deals damage to the opponent, Nightfall 3, deal 2 damage to random opponent Shigemi. Now, this typo is really bad because it's very misleading. He will only gain Nightfall when he deals damage to the opponent player, not their Shigemi. But once again, Green has another Shigemi that can attack directly, which indirectly makes Chin even more powerful. Anyway, his first card is Rapid Shadow. It's a combat card with +1 attack and +1 shield. Nightfall 5. Gain crit when attacking a Shigemi. It's a decent card for building up Nightfall counters, but I think Kubi Nashi is more suited to direct attacking instead of attacking Shigemi. Then we have Flying Cranial Banter. The art is both funny looking and kind of creepy. It has fast and projectile 1. Then Nightfall 3, draw a card. It's a decent card to use to poke your opponent with, while also gaining Nightfall point. The next card is Beheaded. It's a combat card with -1 attack. It has unyielding and trigger. After dealing damage to the opponent's Shigemi, deal the same damage to the opponent player. This is literally the perfect card to use alongside Chin, because sometimes when you use Chin and your opponent has a big blocker, you need to get rid of that blocker first. But with this, you can put Kubi Nashi in the combat zone and you get to deal damage to the opponent player. Then we have another combat card, Intimidate Smash. Enhance. This card gains +1 attack for every 2 Nightfall counter. This card will gain +5 at the highest, but since you're playing green, you don't exactly have the time to wait that long. Realistically, you will get +2 or +3 most of the time. Then we have his first form card with 3/6 stats, Skeleton. It has haste, gain direct hit when assaulting. Kubi Nashi at this point is just a superior and much cheaper warrior, and I don't think I need to tell you that you should run this. The next card is his Evolve. It has +1/+1 stats. He now deals 2 extra damage to another Shigemi if you have Nightfall 7. That's it. If you're using this, you're most likely just looking for the stats boost. Next, we have a field spell, Voidness Fire. It has 8 intensity. When your Shigemi assaults or use a combat card, Nightfall 10, gain +2 attack. And at the end of the turn, gain a random combat card you've used in this match. You know, when green have a field spell, it most likely be the most busted field compared to other field focused Shigemi. You can ignore that Nightfall 10 because gaining that combat card is much more useful than a +2 attack. And lastly, his SSR, Shadowing. It's a combat card with +1/+1. Does not cost any orb. At the start of your turn, if you have 10 Nightfall counters, put this from any zone to your hand. This card can attack any unit if it was added by this effect. It's alright, I guess. It's not mind-blowing, but if you can build up until Nightfall 10, this card can be very annoying to deal with. The next Shigemi is Ittan Momen. I've listened to a few of her voice line. It seems that she has some kind of relationship with Oryuki. So if you guys know about her lore, please let me know down in the comments. Anyway, her basic ability is that when she's defeated, Nightfall 5 -1 countdown to all your defeated Shigemi. This is a very welcome addition to Blue Shigemi, because usually Blue Shigemi player will just scoop if their Shigemi got wiped. Now with Ittan Momen, they can at least have a fighting chance to come back. And then her first card is Untangling Attack. It's a combat card with +1 attack and +1 shield. It has Rebound and Nightfall free, stun the attack Shigemi. We have another card that supports stun, which is always welcome, and it even has Rebound that Blue Mist will definitely appreciate. The next card is Fading Warmth. Oh shit, that's Oryuki. Recover health equal to your Nightfall point to 1 unit. I think this is a solid heal card for Blue Mist standard because your other option is stacking fields with Hana or using Umibozu. Then we have a field with 5 intensity. Once per turn, when opponent Shigemi attacks directly or attacks Ittan Momen, Nightfall 5 stun that Shigemi. Bro, Nedis, why? Why did the translation got worse the further we go? But anyway, this is an okay card, I guess, if you want to stun lock your opponent. The next card is Snow Weaving. Can be played even when defeated. It has Rebound, revive one of your Shigemi and move it to the combat zone. Nightfall 7, stun the Shigemi in the opponent combat zone. Blue Mist finally have a revive on demand and it even has Rebound. So this is a definite 2-off if you're playing Ittan Momen. Then we have Quiet Chatter. Put 2 cards with Nightfall keyword from the deck to your hand. And Nightfall 5, they gain fast until the end of the turn. You know, I'm just going to accept Netis just doesn't proofread their cards, but this card is pretty nice. Getting 2 cards and gaining fast is good to set up your combo. The next card is her only form. It has 2/5 stats, Snowy Dead. Revive Ittan Momen and move her to the combat zone when defeated. This is basically Odokuro's level 2 form, just without the fast keyword. And that's a good card to tank enemy attacks. The next card is her SSR, Evolve Ittan Momen. It has +2/+2 stats boost. On activation, recover health equal to your Nightfall counter, and she will receive an extra effect if you have 10 Nightfall. If you receive a fatal damage, defeat Ittan Momen to negate that damage. This is basically a better version of Aobozu's SSR, but this only negates that fatal damage, not the damage after. So keep that in mind when using this. And her last card is Crimson Knight. It's a combat card with +2 attack, immune to attack damage. Stun an opponent's Shigemi and randomly attack every stunned Shigemi instead. Nightfall 10, gain lifesteal. In a dedicated stun build, this is absolutely nuts because she can almost board wipe your opponent if you stun all of their Shigemi. The next Shigemi is Yasha. I think out of all the Shigemi introduced in this new pack, I think he is fairly unremarkable because he literally cannot do anything if you don't bring any other Nightfall Shigemi. And design-wise, he doesn't really stand out either. His basic ability is once per turn, when your Shigemi's Nightfall is triggered, Yasha gains +1. Think of it like a much weaker Ashura. I think they learned their lesson when Ashura got nerfed to the ground. His first card is a combat card, Slaughter. Nightfall free, gain unyielding during this combat. When defeating a Shigemi, recover all health for Yasha. This card is alright. The bonus unyielding is also a nice touch, but this card doesn't have any plus stats, which makes it questionable to run as a 2-off. And the next card is his first form card with 2/6 stats, Shura. It has piercing, and on activation, Nightfall free, gain hunt. Those are some very nice combination of keywords, but the base stats is a bit low for my taste. Then again, Yasha is a blue mist Shigemi, so I kind of understand why they don't give it higher stats. Then the next card is a field card with 5 intensity, Underworld Sea. When opponent Shigemi is defeated, Nightfall 5, defeat countdown +1 for that Shigemi. I think this would be a very good meme card to use alongside Hangan and deadlock your opponent. Then we have his Evolve. That only gives him +1 health. Nightfall 5, Yasha gains first move until the end of this turn, and the attack increase is no longer once per turn. This card would have been better if it has fast or that first move buff becomes semi-permanent. Maybe it's okay as a one-off. Then we have another form card with 6/6 stats, Evil Spirit. On activation, Nightfall 5, gain Barrier. The stats and the barrier is nice and all, but after it loses the barrier, it's just a big bitter. The art is very nice though. The next card is another combat card, this time with +1/+1 stats, Nightfall 7, draw a card. When you defeat a Shigemi, put another copy of Plunder to your hand. I like the idea of a reusable combat. I think you can ignore that Nightfall 7 unless you are running a full Nightfall team. And then we have his SSR. It's a form card with 7/7 stats, can be played when defeated. Revive Yasha and move Yasha to the combat zone. Nightfall 10, play this card automatically from the deck or your hand. It's like a less RNG reliant Kidomaru's SSR. It's good for what it is, but I think Kidomaru SSR is slightly better because if you can stack your top deck, you can use it multiple times. And lastly, we have another combat card, this time with +2/+2, Demon. Nightfall 10, gain 1 orb. When you kill a Shigami, deal 2 damage to all opponent units. I think this is good as a one-off, a decent card to push for endgame. And finally, we have the last Shigami of this pack. Her name is Suzuhiko Hime. She's a very interesting Shigami that works very similar to the Mujo brother, but without needing the charge. Her basic ability is that when Suzuhiko Hime is defeated, switch to Sacred Scorching Fire with 1 health and move it to the standby. Sacred Scorching Fire has 0-4 stats with the ability at the start of your turn recover 1 health, and when it's at full health, switch back to Suzuhiko Hime and deal 1 AoE to opponent units. This just means if you can heal her, she's basically immortal, and when she switches back, she deals 1 damage AoE. Not much, but if you can do it consistently, that 1 damage can be very annoying to deal with. Her first card is Shake Bell. It's a combat card that says recover 3 health for us after attacking. I think she can be paired with Vampira because a lot of her cards recover your health, and Vampira gains attack boost when you are healed. Her next card is a field card with 5 intensity, Flickering Starfire. When entering the battlefield and at the start of your turn, recover 1 health to all of your units and plus 1 more for Sacred Scorching Fire. I think this is a great card to slowly recover your health while also taking advantage of Suzuhiko Hime's switch mechanic. Then we have Dance Blade. It's a combat card with plus 1 attack and Hunt. Simple combat card with Hunt is always nice to have. Then we have another field card with 5 intensity. On activation, deal 4 damage to opponent Shigami and Suzuhiko Hime. And now Sacred Scorching Fire recovers health instead when it receives non-attack damage. The on-activation effect is nice, but the rest of the effect is very situational. Then we have her evolve. It gives plus 2 attack to Suzuhiko Hime and recover 3 health on activation. Then play an extra Sacred Scorching Fire for some odd reason. I don't know what kind of benefit if you summon an extra fire, but the plus 2 attack is very nice. Then we have Renaissance. It's a combat card that says the combat damage taken will recover your life equal to that damage, and it has trigger when you have Sacred Fire. I think this card is awesome, especially against Cooking Shigami because since they stack a ton of buff and have huge stats, and with this card you can potentially recover your health back to full. The next card is Fire Remnant. It has fast and rebound. Recover 5 health. That's a huge amount of health, and that's on a fast card that also has rebound. It's good by itself, but I'm not sure if you would run it. And lastly, we have her SSR. It's a field card with 5 intensity, Eternal Fire. Sacred Scorching Fire gains plus 3 attack and becomes immune on your turn. On activation and at the start of your turn, Sacred Fire will launch attack and fully recovers its health. 3 attack summon isn't exactly threatening, but I can't really complain because it's a pretty good card. And that's all for the new Shigami from this pack. I think they introduced a fairly balanced mechanic and it's not complicated even for new players. But man, they really should proofread their cards before release. This kind of mistake is really bad for a card. And if I had to rank their SSR based on how good they are, this is my personal opinion, I would say rank S would be Russet Sparrow, rank A would be Momiji and Ittan Momen, rank B would be Ushi no Toki, Yasha and Suzuhiko Hime, rank C would be Kinnara and Kubi Nashi. And that's about it for my first impression of the new Shigami. So I hope this helps you make the decision if you want to spend on this pack or wait for the next pack. And what do you think of the new pack? Let me know down below. I can't ask you to support me on Patreon or Ko-Fi because I'm still not sure if I can provide the content that you can look forward to. But when I do, please support me if you like. Anyways, as usual, if you have any kind of feedback, leave it down in the comments and see you next video. Bye!